Yes.
Okay, we're about to start as soon as Dawn gives me the okay. Okay, we're ready to go. We'll open the meeting with the pounding of the gavel. This regular meeting of the board is now in session. First item, as usual, is roll call.
Mr. Spagel,
Here.
Mr. Titus,
Here.
Ms. Cooley,
Gwen, are you there?
She has not logged in.
Okay,
Mrs.
proceed with the roll call.
Mrs. Feeney,
Here.
Mrs. McNair,
Here.
Mr. Nichols,
Sumner?
Ms. Pickens,
Here.
Okay,
Ms. Sheridan,
Here.
Mr. Harkins.
here. Can we get somebody to phone those two board members and maybe see if they're struggling?
Who was it?
It was Gwen and Sumner.
Yeah, I have both their numbers.
All right, if somebody could just call them or text them or. Otherwise, the next item is our Pledge of Allegiance, and it will be led tonight by Carliana Donmore, fifth grade student from Jefferson Elementary School. She'll be introduced by Mr. Jeffrey Bone, the principal, followed by a moment of silence for Francis Rinderly, a retired custodian who passed away on March 24th, 2020. Mr. Bone?
Good evening.
Good evening.
Mr. Polito, Ms. Habersky, President Harkins, and the entire Erie Public Schools Board. My name is Jeffrey Bohm, and I am the principal at Jefferson Elementary. I am here on behalf of the 40 extraordinary teachers and the 22 amazing staff at Jefferson Elementary to introduce Carliana Donmore. Carliana is a fifth grade student in Mr. Viglione's class. She is the daughter of Fauna Campbell and the sister of Jazania Lucas and Brianna Dunmore. Carliana enjoys her friends most about school, and her favorite subjects are science and math. Carliana is an above average student with all A's and B's her whole career at Jefferson. She was a kindergartner when I was reassigned to Jefferson 6 years ago, so this fifth grade class, including Carliana, is very special to me. Carliana enjoys dancing, soccer, baking, painting, and helping others when she's not at school. In the future, Carliana plans on becoming a doctor or a nurse, but this is not set in stone. Just yet, we'll never know. Ladies and gentlemen, I am pleased to introduce April's student pledge leader, Carliana Dunmore from Jefferson Elementary.
Hello, Carliana. Can we ask you to stand with us and lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance? Whenever you're ready, Carliana.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, for liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Carliana. We have a certificate of recognition to give to you. Oh, I'm sorry, we're going to have a moment of silence. We'll have our moment of silence. Thank you. We have a certificate of recognition to get to you along with a little replica flag and a little gift from the district to you for your participation. And we'll get that to you through the mail, if nothing else, in the very near future, Carliana. Thanks to you and Mr. Paul.
Thank you.
Hi, Carliana.
Bye.
They want to say hello to you. Let them say hello.
Hello.
We miss you.
Miss you too.
Okay, Carliana, thank you.
So,
Our next item is the introduction of Kaylin Fedak, our student representative to the board for the April and May of 2020 school year from Erie High School. Kaylin Fedek is a senior at Erie High who is enrolled in the medical assistant program. She is an active member of student council. She's secretary to the National Honor Society and an active member of Skills USA, where she won gold in the state skills competition for medical assisting. Kaylin played on the girls tennis team for 2 years and was also a team captain. In addition to school and sports, Kaylin works at Brevelier Village Nursing Home as a recreation aide. Following graduation from high school, Kaylin plans to attend Penn State Barron and major in nursing to become a registered nurse. Welcome, Kaylin. Wish we could see you in person, but you have the unusual distinction of being the first student rep that participates this way. Is there anything you'd like to say to us or anybody listening tonight?
I just want to say hi to everyone and thank you for having me.
Well, sure, Kaylin. Good of you to help us this way and be involved. Stay tuned if you choose, and at some point, maybe at the end of the meeting, if there's anything you want to remark on or comment, we'll call on you. I announced that the board met in executive session on Thursday, March 19th, 2020 at the Dr. James E. Barker Leadership Center, 148 West 21st Street in Conference Room 1 from 3:11 p.m. to 3:45 p.m. regarding legal, personnel, and safety matters. On Wednesday, April 1st, 2020, via the online Zoom meeting from 6:37 p.m. to 6:42 p.m. regarding personnel matters. And this evening, Wednesday, April 8th, 2020, online via Zoom meeting from 5:40 p.m. till 6 p.m. regarding legal and personnel matters. The next item on our agenda is the report of the superintendent. I'll call on him to make his report, and then before we approve or accept it, Angela, I have your questions in mind. Mr. Polito?
Thank you, Mr. President. First of all, I'd like to thank our entire EPS community for their patience, flexibility, and support over the last few weeks as we've all adapted to this ever-evolving COVID-19 crisis. As we saw during the fiscal crisis, when there's a need in this community, big or small, the people of our community step up to help. Governor Tom Wolf's March 30th announcement that all Pennsylvania schools will now remain closed indefinitely does not change our mission to deliver a quality education to each and every student. So with that in mind, beginning Monday, April 20th, Erie's public schools will begin delivery of mandatory planned online instruction. All students, kindergarten through 12th, will be required to participate in and complete assignments delivered by their teachers online. We know that many of our families do not have access to the internet or a device with which to access the internet. We are working with community partners to expand Wi-Fi access to reach as many students as possible, as quickly as possible. We are in the process of loaning Chromebooks to students who need them. If you have not already made a reservation for a Chromebook, or if you need internet access, call the district's informational technology department at 874-6801. Department staff can be reached daily from 8 a.m. to 3 p.m. We have also developed separate dedicated web pages for public information regarding our district response and for staff resources, and are in the process of developing an online learning portal linked to our home web page that will help connect students to Google Classroom. The portal will include step-by-step instructions, answers to frequently asked questions, and parent and student resources, including video tutorials. Finally, I want to remind everyone that we all need to do our part to stop this pandemic. As Governor Wolf and Pennsylvania Health Secretary Dr. Rachel Levin tell us daily, our job right now is to stay calm, stay home, and stay safe. If you must leave home, please remember to wear a non-medical or homemade mask. And that concludes my report, Mr. President.
Okay, before we approve or accept it, any board members have any questions or comments for the superintendent? Angela?
Yes, I have questions. I have a couple questions. One of which I've already asked, but I know that since we have a little bit more things figured out, one of the questions is about graduation and prom. I know I asked last meeting about graduation and prom, and I still have that question. I know there's a lot of unknowns, but a lot of parents are very concerned with it being April, and usually prom is at the beginning of May. So we obviously know that we don't have time to schedule that event at this current time, but my question would be, is there a potential rescheduled date? You know, a lot of families are fine with it being rescheduled, obviously, but they don't want to be in limbo about if there's going to be a rescheduled date for the graduation ceremony. We know that students will still graduate, but they are looking forward to a ceremony. That would be my first question. And then my second question would be about credit recovery. Some parents have shown some concern in regards to credit recovery. Those students who needed to do some extra online assignments or whatever the case may be in order to graduate, would like to know, you know, what is going to happen under the current circumstances about credit recovery. So I thought that was a really good question. And then also, I know you addressed the Chromebooks, and I know, Mr. Polito, I've been bugging you about these Chromebooks. I know that I previously had some suggestions and hoping that, you know, maybe there could be a more effective and efficient way of distributing these Chromebooks. I know that my teacher from Jefferson, and Jefferson's been doing a great job, not just because Mr. Bone's on the line, but they emailed me and they actually called me and they texted me and asked me, did I have, you know, iPads and laptops at home? I know that other schools have done the same thing. I don't know if maybe teachers could start reaching out, you know, to make it a little bit more easier to find out who needs one, who doesn't need one. I know there's been community people that's been offering to volunteer to take them. So, you know, just maybe trying to figure it out, because one of the next questions was, you know, about the Chromebooks, like if they don't have them distributed by April 20th, what will be the case? I'm hoping that they will be distributed by April 20th, but if in any event that they weren't distributed by April 20th, you know, was there some type of plan in addressing this, since, you know, student assignments will be due at that point? Another question was grading. I know that you addressed this before, Mr. Polito, but I think that some parents just kind of recognize that, you know, that their students' work from March 2nd through the 13th will still count towards their grade. So just, you know, maybe discuss about grading and how we talked about the pass-fail scenario, or whatever scenario that you have currently in place as far as grading for the rest of the school year. Another question, and Mr. Boehm answered this question for me, ironically. A lot of parents order school pictures. And I know that, you know, that might not be the first thing that pops to mind when you're in the middle of a crisis, but, you know, parents still wanted their school pictures. And I know that the companies are responsible for the pictures. But, you know, if they can hear you address this, they wanted to know about yearbooks, pictures, and several parents have asked about their 8th grade trips. I know that students have paid for some trips, and they're asking about that as well. A lot of parents are asking about student items. You know, people still had things in their lockers or in the classrooms or things like that. You know, they never got a chance to go back and get their property. So I had families asking about their students' property. Would there be any way of collecting their property? And then also some students ordered clothing, like Spirit clothing, you know, at their respective schools. Is there a summer school option, or is that even anything we're going to worry about at this point? Because some people are asking me as well about summer school, And will their child have to attend? And if so, how is that going to work? Will that be online as well? Or how will that instruction work if that happens? And then I think some parents are confused. Me personally, my children have the luxury of having their own iPad or computer, so it's not really an issue. But there are a lot of families that do not have any other electronic devices besides the one that we're giving per family. So some families have been asking, how is the Google Classroom going to work to where, if they have 4 kids that are logging on to classrooms, I didn't want to give them any answer. I would rather you answer that. I know that you log on to the Google Classroom and you look and they give you the instruction and then you just complete the assignment. But I think that, as a superintendent, some people may need to hear you say exactly how it will work, because they're saying, like, how can my one child be logged on from 8:30 to 12:30 on this book when I got 3 other kids? So I don't think they quite understand how the Google Classroom is going to work. So I know that was a lot, and I tried to give a little time in between each one so that you can maybe write them down or whatever. But those are just some questions from myself as a parent that has students in the district, and also from other concerned parents from the district. And I tried to, I made it my promise to the community that I would make sure that, any questions or concerns would reach administration. So I'm just, following up with the promise that I made to them. And hopefully some of these questions can be answered now. And if not, Mr. Polito, I would just ask that you can possibly answer them at some point.
Sure. Well, let me start with the educational. A lot of those questions, I think, will be answered. We actually today just finalized another letter going home to parents with a lot of information on the upcoming planned instruction, FAQ on some of these type of questions, we're also, as I mentioned in my report tonight, creating a web portal for families to go. So we're trying to compile all the questions and resources into one area so that families will be able to go online and access those. Just to go down each of the questions, credit recovery. Credit recovery will work just like the other planned instruction as soon as we turn that back on April 20th. So students, I know that they've been able to go through in credit recovery and cyber and continue their courses. We just could not grade them at this point or give them credit. So they'll be able to go back and make sure that they get credit for all of that work once we start instruction on the 20th. For the graduation and prom, and I think I'll throw the 8th grade picnics in there. I think, at this point, given everything that's happened, I think we need to set reasonable expectations on what we can and can't do for that. The chances that we'll be able to do large group gatherings through the end of the school year it's not likely, and moving into the summer, I think that we're going to continue to have some social distancing challenges that we're going to need to face. So we are going to have to address that. At the last meeting, I did indicate that as soon as we had planned instruction up and running on the 20th and we're ensured that all our students were starting to learn, that we'd start to tackle those issues. We did have a conversation in my team meeting this afternoon. What I'd really like to do with some of those celebrations and events is involve the students. And we have a great venue to do that. It's the Spirit Council. They have representation from all the high schools. So starting on the week of the 20th, it's my plan to convene a Spirit Council Zoom meeting and start discussing this and really talk to the students about what they'd like to do and what they'd like to see to celebrate their successes and their graduation. For the Chromebooks, we're doing our best with the resources we have. We have 4 people manning the phones during the day right now. At this point, we're up to 1,100 Chromebooks being distributed. We're going to continue to expand the hours on that and keep that call center open until all families have an opportunity to call in and make sure that, you know, we do identify all the students that do have internet and device issues so that we can begin to work to address that. The distribution, Mr. Brockman, is that starting next week, or are we starting this week at this point?
It's going to start on Tuesday the 14th.
Tuesday the 14th. So we have a pretty tight system in place where parents can pull up the reason why we need them to call into one location in IT is because we need to gather all the data we need to ensure that, one, they're a student here in the district, and also that you know, that we have information just in case somebody decides not to return it. But when they're gathering all that information on the phone when they call in, at that point, then the call center is giving each family a serial number for their Chromebook, and they've been advised to write that number on a piece of paper. And when they pull up, all they have to do is show that serial number, and they will be handed that Chromebook. So we have all those scheduled for next week, starting on the 14th. And, you know, it's our plan to try to get everything distributed by the end of the week. You know, I'm hopeful that we'll be able to do that. I think, you know, at a minimum, we'll be able to do the majority of those. Sticking on the Chromebooks, we are using, giving some flexibility. If we have a family that has 2 students, we're only going to provide 1 Chromebook. If there's more than 2 students, we may be providing multiple Chromebooks just to ensure there's enough access, you know, for the families during the day. But, you know, again, I just want to remind everyone that the way we've designed this instruction, it's project-based. It's not, you know, you're going to have an assignment due this day or that day. It's designed for them to complete projects over a period of time. So again, it gives us some flexibility to make sure that we get the resources to the students, even if they aren't there on the 20th, and also give them an opportunity during this last quarter to work at their own pace to get all that work done and receive credit for it. The grading, I think I'll turn to Teresa for that.
Let me unmute myself. A reminder, I'm just looking at my dates here, that missing work from March 2nd to March 13th won't count against students. So even if they don't hand it in or don't have the means to hand it in at that particular time, it won't count against them. Once they do get the Chromebooks and they can turn it in maybe next week, the grading window opens on the 20th, and that's still open to the 24th. So we do have a little bit more leeway in case they get their Chromebooks late. Any assignment that may have been due after the 13th will not count against students. Does that answer what the question, Angela?
So I think that that probably answered some people's questions, because there was the concern about that March 2nd through 13th. And I know that you all have been relaying this message that you know, it's project based and things like that. But, you know, some people, you know, they don't hear about it. And then, you know, they have, you know, everybody has somebody telling them something different. So I just thought maybe just bringing it back up in the meeting again, because I'm continuing to be asked the same question over and over again. And then also they were concerned about like maybe the pass fail. And I remember asking that question last week. But I think more people have taken interest now that they know this is about to start. So now they're getting a little worried, like, you know, how is that gonna work? Like, as far as, you know, the grading of the projects, because I don't even think they realized it was project based, you know. So I'm glad that he said that, because some people are thinking they gotta sit at the computer all day. So just, you know, I'm just trying to bring some clarity to the situation. Obviously I know, but I just want to make sure everybody else is clear, you know, and hearing it from you all, as far as, you know, are they going to be getting an A, a B? Is it, you know, are they just going to, if they complete the projects to the best of their ability, will they pass? You know, I know you all are still working on that, you know, guideline situation, but just kind of putting their minds at ease as much as, you know, just so, you know.
So moving forward in the fourth quarter with the project based, we're going to complete, satisfactory, and complete, and that may not be clear for everybody. We're still waiting for some guidance from the Department of Education on how we're moving forward. So the biggest concern probably would be students' final grades. And we're still working that out, how that will weight into the first three quarters, but we're working through that. And I will also advise principals to possibly have teachers post this information in their Google Classroom so parents have access to it.
Mr. President, I keep raising my hand, and I mean, nobody can, I don't know why I keep doing that, because that's not effective at all. But just to kind of follow up on what Angela just said with this question, is I had received a couple like follow-ups in that same line of thought. One being, how will the online platform so the students who are already online, because it builds on itself, so they can't progress to the next step without completing what was done first. For that time window, I guess because will they get an extension, because they can't just pick up, like 2 weeks later and move on. They have to go right wherever they stopped. And so for students who had stopped on whatever date school it out, they're now stuck at that date. And they have to work all the way through that full 10-week or that, I'm sorry, that like 4-week span before they can pick up where they were left off. And that I think would loop into the credit recovery as well too, because I'm guessing those students they have to build on where they stopped, so they can't just leave out that block of work that was done. And so one thought that we had just kind of tossed around, or I was, maybe we could talk about is possibly an extension, just for like if they were in that platform or already on that platform, having like an extra week to get some of that work, because they can't just unclick it and before they get to the next mod, they have to do this mod. Does that make sense?
It does, and they do work at their own pace a lot of the time, and we do have things in place. If they do finish and need to move on to the next thing, they have ways that they can contact the teacher, where the teacher can have them move on, whether it's a Saturday or a Sunday. So we do have that available for students if they need to move at a faster pace.
What on the flip side, if there is like that reverse, will they be penalized if they didn't get all the way through because they weren't out or they didn't have access? I'm thinking some of the kids maybe were going to the school and having it proctored there, and that's where they were getting internet access. And for these past few weeks, they haven't been able to go on and move through the mods, so maybe they're far behind.
Right. So I did talk with Mrs. Crable about that, and the teachers do have the ability to assign certain parts of the courses. So our teachers can find that natural progression to assist students moving forward as we move into the fourth quarter.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Does the superintendent have anything to report to us on that internet access effort that was going to be made to reduce dead spots or amplify the signal?
Yes, we're collecting that data right now as the families call in and let us know that they do not have internet access. So we're hoping that by tomorrow we'll have a better idea what areas, at least to start, we need to focus on. Surprisingly, at this point, I think we were under 300 families that had contacted us with internet access issues. So if that holds, that's much easier to deal with than what we initially anticipated. But again, once we have that idea of where in the city we need to focus, we'll be able to work with VelocityNet to target those areas. We also did place an order for hotspots. I know they're on back order until May, but we want to make sure that we get them in as soon as possible, because I think there's going to be, again, some of those families that we're going to have to look at on a case-by-case basis to try to find access for them.
Thanks for that, Brian. Kaylin Fedak, if you're still there, as a student, having heard the discussion and the questions about student matters, I just wondered if you had anything to ask or comment.
I don't have any questions right now.
Okay, thank you.
I just have a couple more. The student items, the summer school, was it the other ones?
Right. So summer school, we are right now planning to have some type of summer programming for students that weren't able to complete their assignments through this last quarter. We don't know what that's going to look like yet because we don't know if we're going to be able to meet face to face or not. But at this point, we do plan on having some type of a program to, again, give those students that didn't finish everything an opportunity to make up over the summer. For the school pictures and yearbook, I don't have an answer on that. I don't know if Neil or Teresa, you do, but that may be something we need to look into.
Mr. Boehm had that answer for me. He gave me the answer on that. I could forward that email, but he had told me, he sent me the email that said that the company, and you probably know the company, I don't remember what he said the company was. They sent an email that said that they due to COVID-19, they were behind in fulfilling orders, and there was a number that they sent him that if you want to cancel your order, you have that option, or you could just wait until they can fulfill your order. So Mr. Boehm had the information. If he could forward it to Mr. Polito, that would be great.
Yep, I can send that to you, Brian. And what they said is they're all shut down. They're not essential business, so they can't print them. But he did give me his local number and said if someone needs to cancel, they can call the office. So I'll forward that email on to you and Teresa.
Great. Thanks.
Any other questions for the superintendent?
The other item I have on the list here is student items, and I don't think we have an answer for that yet. Again, we're taking this one day at a time, and once we start to see some relief as far as the what's happening in the community and receive more guidance from the governor on maybe bringing in more essential employees or even allowing students to come in to pick up items, we'll certainly get that information out to families immediately.
All right. I really appreciate you, Brian, answering all those questions. And I'm really sorry. I gotta dip out of this meeting. I'm getting messages that my uncle passed away just as I'm on this meeting right now. So I'm gonna let you all go. But
I'm so sorry.
My sympathies, Angela.
I do appreciate you guys answer all of my questions, and thank you.
We thank you, Angela. Our thoughts will be with you and your family.
Mr. President.
Darlene?
Yeah, Brian, I just wanted to suggest that perhaps we use our educational access channel to maybe answer some of these frequently asked questions for our parents that are presently not connected, so that they're not out of the loop.
Okay.
I don't know if that's
a
possible.
Good idea. Yeah, well, I'll talk to Don and Erica, and we'll take a look at that. Thank you.
Mr. President.
When?
I just have a question, Mr. Polito. The seniors, I have the seniors. I have to talk about the seniors. Scholarships, letters of reference, grades. How can they access them to get them to? Because some of them are trying to still move on and do what they need to do. Scholarship deadlines and things of this nature. Everything has a damper on them. So how can they access scholarship information, letters of reference, or grades, which may need to go with these scholarships?
I know Teresa has an answer. She's
bopped up. Ms. Cooley, they can always contact their counselor if they need assistance. I know the counselors have been reaching out to many of the students. They can also access through Infinite Campus if they need to get a copy of their transcripts. That would be unofficial. But we do have the resources, the support staff working in the building. So I will send a reminder to principals to have them reach out to seniors.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions for the superintendent? Here we have a motion to accept and approve the report of the superintendent.
Motion made by Tom.
Second by Tyler.
Seconded by Mr. Titus.
Yes.
Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Approved. This is where we would have a hearing of citizens normally, and we made an effort as best we could to have a normal, to invite and not exclude this aspect. Angela, am I correct that no one,
That's correct.
no one contacted us to request any time to be heard at tonight's meeting? So we'll move on to reports of the committees and liaisons. Are there any committee reports or liaison reports? No need for a motion in that case. There is no unfinished business. Next up is the new business and the supplemental new business. Items 6 and 7 on the agenda that's printed. Can we have a motion before we have any discussion? Maybe have a motion to approve and adopt new business and supplemental.
So moved. This is Darlene.
Moved by Ms. Feeney,
Second by Tom.
seconded by Mr. Spiegel. Discussion on any of the items involved.
Yes, Mr. President.
When?
So all travel requested has been canceled, correct?
I'm looking, Brian, do you know?
That'll be under new business. Okay. Now,
That's the cancellation of all the trips that were previously scheduled and approved.
okay, my other question is, since there's been no school and evidently we will not have school till next year, I'm looking at all these expulsions. What's the status of them?
I believe that those were incidents that occurred prior to school being closed.
They were, Brian. I read them. And they made agreements.
So there was meetings?
There were meetings with, I think, B. Go online and read them, Gwen.
This is prior to school being closed. so
Right. This was in
catch up.
February.
Yeah, prior to everything happening.
I know I said it on a couple. I'm just wondering. I don't recall all these. All right, I'll look. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments on any item in the new business tonight? Roll call.
One question.
Okay, go ahead.
It's Rose. The gearing up section where they're getting paid session 2. Did they complete the whole session? What was the duration of the session?
Rose, they did. That session ended February 27th.
Okay.
We couldn't turn it around quick enough to get it on the board docs for March. So that's why you're seeing it now.
Okay, thanks.
Sure.
Any other discussion? Roll call on the new business and supplemental.
Mr. Spiegel,
Yes.
Mr. Titus,
Yes.
Ms. Cooley, Ms. Cooley,
Yes.
Mrs. Feeney,
Yes.
Mr. Nichols,
Yes.
Ms. Pickens,
Yes.
Ms. Sheridan,
Yes.
Mr. Harkins.
Yes. Next, we have the approval of minutes for the March 11th of this year meeting attached electronically to the agenda. Do we have a motion to approve those
I
minutes?
move we approve them.
Moved by Darlene Feeney,
Second.
second by Mr. Spiegel. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay, that motion approves the minutes. Next, we have bills and payrolls to be paid and approved. Do we have a motion?
Motion to
made
pay
by
off.
Tom.
the-
Moved by Ms. Cooley, seconded by
Tom.
Tom Spiegel. Any discussion on the bills and payrolls? Roll call.
Mr. Spiegel,
Yes.
Mr. Titus,
Yes.
Ms. Cooley,
Yes.
Mrs. Feeney,
Yes.
Mr. Nichols,
Yes.
Ms. Pickens,
Yes.
Ms. Sheridan,
Yes.
Mr. Harkins.
Yes. May we have a motion to approve the report of the secretary?
So be it by Tom.
Moved by Mr. Spiegel.
Second, Ms.
Second by-
Cooley.
Any discussion? Roll call.
Mr. Spiegel,
Yes.
Mr. Titus,
Yes.
Miss Cooley,
Yes.
Mrs. Feeney,
Yes.
Mr. Nichols,
Yes.
Miss Pickens,
Yes.
Miss Sheridan,
Yes.
Mr. Harkins.
Yes. There are no bids to award this evening. Is there any other matter which any board member wishes to bring up for discussion? Including you, Kalen Fedak, you're a member for tonight. If not, may we have a motion to adjourn?
So be it. Tom?
Moved by Mr. Spiegel, we adjourn.
I second it.
Seconded by Ms. Cooley. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Meeting adjourned. Thanks, everyone. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Happy Easter, everyone.